you know, when you say about the same faces, when you stream and there's just a couple of people watching, it's pretty much a conversation between you and a couple of people. Whereas when it gets to more people, it's actually quite good because you get different views and there's different viewpoints. Because for me, it's like still a positive community because people have all different views, which is good. Because like I said, you don't want to hear just one side of it, do you? You want to get
Mhm.
that sort of balanced view. Then you were saying about using football as a kind of helping you out. If people are starting to find football's actually making them negative because of the way the club's playing, then possibly I would say it's always good to have multiple hobbies. One thing I found in terms of like the Premier League seems to be pushing loads of like gambling sponsorships. And I'm not against gambling, but I don't really gamble. And I think sometimes that is definitely I can't watch just football like anything on TV without about 5 betting adverts. So I think there's
Mhm.
probably maybe a drive towards money more than anything, which I think fans don't like.
Hi, Rich. Welcome to We Are Mentally United podcast. It is great to be on the host side for once. Me and you have worked closely on so many different episodes for your channel, Red Devil United. So, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Naomi. It's actually quite nice to be a guest because I think when you're a host, sometimes I'm thinking like continually, what sort of questions can I ask? So it's actually in a weird way, it feels more relaxing. I can just sit and just go with the questions and not feel pressured kind of to think, oh, what should I say next? What's going to be the next like topic? So, and also thank you for all the help you've done on my channel as well. Like really good to get your points of view regarding Manchester United, and I'm happy to be a guest, to help you with your channel as well, and to hopefully answer some questions that people have got.
Thank you, Rich. Absolutely. It's definitely more relaxing. I'll tell you that much. And thank you so much for having me all the time. I feel like we have the best times when, we're talking about football, talking about Man United. It's always a great time. So I'm so glad that we could reconnect and have you here on We Are Mentally United. For folks who might not be too familiar with your work, please introduce yourself, a little bit about what you do. And yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so do you want a bit of information before YouTube, just a general overview? Because I think before YouTube, general education, school, go to university. I think a lot of focus on my key interest and hobbies would be always music and football. And then I think when you go for a career, you pick something that obviously, if you can't make it as a professional football player, which we know is extremely difficult, and you're not going to be a musician. So as a backup, I went for science because I enjoyed biology. I was quite good at maths, and I think that was a natural thing. Quite find it quite interesting as well. And I think working in that for quite a long time, I think obviously one of the things that I did quite like is like finding out information, like I was doing research, just finding out how things work and sort of experimentation, that sort of thing. And I think it's a lot of it is in terms of just looking for knowledge as well. And I think with football, what I'm doing now on my YouTube channel is it's a lot of news-based things, which I think is kind of similar, where you're looking at lots of articles, you're reading journals, but instead of looking at scientific journals, I'm looking at and probably tweets from Fabrizio, or or you see like Manchester United magazines, and looking at just like maybe evaluating see whether you think it's believable or not. But in terms of the YouTube, this was something that's fairly recent, I suppose. With I wasn't really that familiar with YouTube when I started sort of creating content. I think I came across something by accident and just thought it'd be quite cool just to if you're going to make predictions, and I would normally in my free time talk about football. I thought you could like record them and you got something there so you can then look back on and see how accurate you were. So I think I started off with that, making videos. So at that point in time, it's pretty much just myself. You film a few things, you try and practice editing. So it's quite a big learning curve. I'll say that. So initially, before I started, I had no idea about anything. It was literally like Google a few things, try and find out what to do, just even to find out how to set up a channel to start with. So I think for me, like 5 6 years ago, I had no idea about anything about YouTube. So everything's been for me like quite a big experience in terms of trying to figure out what the best thing to do is, and try and figure out, like you said again, like you're trying to build a community, try and build that sort of thing. So I think for me that was always because it was like fun to talk about football, and it felt like quite a fun thing to do. So initially it just started really slow with like a couple of people that I essentially just messaged on Twitter and just go, right, you guys interested in joining a podcast? And to actually to say how my channel really started would be that because I put out a few short videos of maybe like 4 or 5 minutes, nothing like that, and you just post it and go, right, will anyone see this? And then you get a few views, and then I think somebody messaged me and said, "Would I be interested in joining a podcast?" And I thought, "Oh, that sounds quite good. Sounds quite
Mm.
interesting." And so I went on that channel with about three or four other people, and I thought, okay, this is actually quite fun. And I thought, "Oh, I would like to actually organize my own." Whereas then you can kind of decide what you want to talk about and go to that sort of approach. So that's kind of what made me switch to doing sort of live stream podcasts.
Wow, that's really incredible. Were others in your community already creating content when you started YouTube, or like how did your community kind of influence that journey, if it did at all?
I think do you mean people I know before YouTube, or because I didn't really know anybody else that was doing it personally, so I didn't know any sort of family or friends that were doing it. I think a lot of it, what I did was I looked at, I think I just typed things into YouTube and just for Manchester United just to get ideas, see what people were doing, see what sort of graphics they're using. And I think there was a couple of channels. I focused on like smaller channels, and I thought I messaged one person, and I think you might have met him, called Kieran, who had a channel called Red Devil, Daily Red Devil, or no, Red Devil Daily. It used to be called. Then he changed it to Red Devil Weekly, and it's just, I think it's just getting doing less and less content. 'Cause it's quite time consuming. And I messaged him and just asked him a few questions, and that was kind of how it got started with him as a sort of regular guest, and that was probably about 5 years ago. Then I just messaged other people, and gradually, you find other people that are interested. And then there was probably about three, four of us that would do a stream maybe like 4 or 5 times a week. Or initially, it was maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Just meet up, have a chat for about hour and a half, a couple of hours about football, and it kind of built along really slowly along like that. I think a lot of the time I didn't really look what other channels were doing, so we just kind of focused on just the same sort of guests week in week out, doing the same sort of similar sort of things, where I was talking about what's happened in the team. And I think for me, it grew quite slowly, and it's only recently where I think a couple of years ago I thought I'll try and be a bit more organized, and then trying to do things a bit more regular. Maybe pick a schedule sort of thing, pick a time of the day to do something, because it used to be quite random, and because of where I lived before, I could only do something at 10:30. So because I was streamed really late at night UK time, there was actually quite a few Americans involved because it worked really nicely for their time frame. So if I was going to do something, say 10:30 in the UK time as a starting time, if I messaged people, they would be thinking, "No, that's just too late." And I think, okay, that is true. It is quite late. But there was a few Americans that were like really helped me out in the first sort of couple of years, where they're like, "Yeah, that's absolutely fine. That's like 4 in the afternoon for us, 5 in the afternoon." So it did help actually. You do actually meet a lot of people doing this. That is quite a positive. Like we met because I think I messaged you because I saw you possibly on a YouTube channel, and you're interested in Manchester United, and that's kind of how I met you. That's how I've met a few other regular people, and so that's a real positive. And I think a lot of people, a lot of people assume that maybe we know each other really well when we're on the same podcast, and I think, well, not really. We just met like a few times before. So for me, that's quite positive. You meet someone like the other side of the world, and essentially they've got the same interests, and it builds quite a you realize there is quite a lot of people in the similar sort of communities just all around the world. And so for me, that's probably the biggest positive. Like even last week, someone will get in the live comments and say hi from Ghana, and someone else will be, oh hi, I live in Australia. And you think it's just, I mean, Manchester United fans do get everywhere, so there is that benefit.
Definitely, absolutely. And I was also just thinking that like, we're all from like so many different parts of the world, but then we're brought together by our love of football, our love of Manchester United. But then beyond that, we're always speaking about different things in our lives and finding relatable things, finding support, finding community. And also being exposed to cultures and lifestyles of like different parts of the world. Not everybody's gonna get to travel to like all the countries or all the continents, but through just conversing and finding something in common, we've been able to learn so much about other people's culture, ways of lives that are like 3,000, 4,000 miles away. So yeah, that's really exciting that you brought that up.
Yeah, no, it's definite positive, I think, and I think it's just something that you don't really think about initially. Do you? You think maybe I'm going to talk to people that are going to be close by, but no, for me that's a benefit. And like you said, you find out different things about them. Also, because we have different media, like you have American sources, I'm assuming more than we would look at like British press and British journalists, and also some of us, if we've been able to go and see games or we've been closer to the club, we all have like different. It's a bit like I do like a few American sports teams, but my relationship with them would be very different from somebody that lives nearby and goes to watch them week in week out. But we still support them, and I think it's a you speak to some fans and they say, "Oh, we're really looking forward to going to." Oh, like, to me, actually, it's actually quite difficult to get tickets now. I'm not a season ticket holder. It's actually quite difficult and quite expensive for us. But if you're in the US, it's a massive sort of expenditure to go and watch Manchester United. And I just think, wow, I just hope you get a good game because that's a lot of pressure to like fly from fly from like the US, go to watch the game. I think I hope we win because it's like it's bad
Yeah,
traveling from where I live, but for you guys, it
yeah.
is a big thing.
It's interesting. It's also like always a preseason game, so it's like, not that serious most of the time. I think it's fun. Honestly, I think people do it for the community and to just be there with like other people. Because more than the game, it's like 4 or 5 days of activities with like all the biggest fans, and all the creators and stuff like that. So I genuinely think it's about that like actual like game day. Cause yeah, like you said, it's very difficult to like go to a game nowadays and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, we have our battles with Ticketmaster and Live Nation and all of that. So that gives me anxiety by itself. So appropriate, but that we bring it up. But yeah, it's definitely like very difficult, but just being together with the fans, I think is what makes it like worth it. But also with different games, we get to speak about it and experience it in a communal way, even though we can't always be there and like experience a game, because when you experience a game, it's a very communal activity. There's like thousands of people, you're all like eating, enjoying together. And the second best thing would be to just watch it with your friends online and make funny comments and stuff like that. So I definitely relate to that. And also it's like 8 a.m. here when we watch a game. So, or like 5 or 6 if you're in like LA. So for me specifically to like watch a game, feel great or feel not so great, and then be able to jump on with everyone and do like a match reaction. That's like I can't express that. That's really unique to be able to do that.
It's quite. I was going to say because when I've gone to watch Manchester United, most of the time it's at Old Trafford, and it would be either get the train or drive. You go and see the game, and then you leave. So it'd be because we live in the UK, it would be for me. Once you want the main thing is about the result and the football, I suppose, because you go in and you sit in different seats. So, but it is different, and I think it's if you enjoy football as a sport as well, you get a different perspective when you're at the game. But I've been also when I used to live further north at university, there was a couple of times where I could go to away games, and for me that was so much fun as well because we would get the tram, or like when I lived in Sheffield, or we'd like drive up with friends when I was living somewhere else, and we would get involved. Like it would be the away fans, and they'd be very vocal, lots of singing, and it was like a big build up to the game, and that was amazing. So I can see why people that have got season tickets, the away games are fantastic as well, and it's a different environment, different atmosphere, and it's just something a bit unique. But it's that difficult to be involved in and quite expensive to be involved in if you don't live in the UK. But it's a different thing, isn't it? Because you're there with the fans that for them it's like a big day out, and maybe the expectation's not as high as when you're at home. But again,
Mhm.
it's a community thing, isn't it? You go there, and for me, the 2 hours before the match were almost just as good because it was like a build up of like anticipation, and everybody was like, the whole town's like buzzing, and there's thousands of
Yeah.
people there for one reason, and it's a really big occasion.
Yeah, exactly. I felt that same energy when everyone was like traveling for the Champions League finals, and there was like a guide for the fans and this and dozens of videos. So it's really exciting.
You can't. It's difficult to explain because I've been lucky enough to go to not loads of games, but a few games at Old Trafford that have had really good teams. Actually, I don't think I went to Old Trafford in '99, but I managed to go to Hillsborough and watch the treble winning team. But going in, say, '07, '08 with like the team that had Rooney and Ronaldo, and we go
Mhm.
to watch games there with the expectation we're going to win because we had such a great team. But there was one game I went to that was against Liverpool, and we did win that game as well. But when we went to that game, like the atmosphere was different, and it's difficult to explain. But there was like this kind of extra level of like, it's a Champions League is like an extra level, but against Liverpool, it was like there was next, you could feel it in the air. You can't really, I don't know how you explain it, but as we walk into the game, we
Yeah.
like go, oh, this feels a bit different. It feels a bit, but there's like a bit of edge to it.
Yeah, only football fans would know what that feels like, and I guess other sports fans might know too, but it's
Yeah,
definitely
it's
hard
like
to
a tension, isn't
explain.
it?
Yeah, it's like it's incredible. I don't really know how to explain that feeling honestly, but sports entertainment is one of the biggest industries ever, so I think most people agree with us on that.
Yeah, no,
Amazing.
it's you can't explain it, can you, unless you're there, where you think it's exciting but like tense at the same time, and there's like this feeling that everyone's like excited about something that's going to happen, but we don't know
Yeah.
it's definitely going to be good, but we know it's going to be like something dramatic.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, and I feel like I live in Denver, so it's like a very sports city. Like we have a lot of sports teams and stuff like that. So I feel that at least people here will kind of relate a little bit to that fact. But something that interests me is like in a time where like isolation has become such a central topic, or like loneliness or the epidemic of loneliness that we have has become such a central point. I feel like sports activities and the communities within sports, like they've created such a space for people to be together, like have a third space, like where they go, they know that, they're gonna see someone who either they know from the past or at least they have something in common. So I feel like it's sports really does a lot for community. But yeah, we'll be getting a little bit more into that. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced as a creator early on when you started your channel, but also nowadays? Like, what has been some challenges for you?
I think the biggest challenge initially was probably the technical side of it, where you think, okay, how do I actually, start a YouTube channel in terms of uploading videos or like creating live, or what software do I need to like host the podcast to do it live, etc. And so all these things were like the first sort of thing I did, and I think that's when I was messaging people that had small YouTube channels and thinking, what I did usually, I don't watch a lot of channels, but for like a few weeks, I just looked at a lot of people and just found the people, to be honest, I liked their content. And I think, oh,
Mm.
Kieran looks like, he's really like laid back. He's like pretty calm. And I was like, okay, I like the way he presents himself. So I thought he'd be a good person to talk to. He's not going to be too angry about things, but also I could approach him, ask him some questions. So I was asking technical details, and I think another thing is graphics, where again, content creators, I think if you approach them and just ask polite questions, like, a lot of people will respond, because sometimes people ask me questions and I'll happily respond if I can answer the questions. Because a lot of people are in the same boat. Like you think, okay, there's a YouTube channel. I quite like what they're doing. Go, how do they make those thumbnails, or what software are they using to display that? And I think ultimately we all got our own idea of what we want to do, but just need to get started to begin with. And then, because I think it's when I first started, I didn't really feel comfortable just hitting live and going on my own, because for a start, I
Mm.
was such a small YouTube channel. It would pretty much just be me, and there wouldn't be really any sort of comments or feedback or anything to sort of to play off. So that's when it's probably difficult getting people involved, because if you message people, I don't know if you've found this at all, but in the football community, you message 50 people, most people will say no, because they have probably a preconception of what it's going to be like, or that where they're just there to shout and insult players. Which for me, maybe some channels do that, but for me, that's not about that. But because they've got maybe some preconceptions, they say, "Oh no, it's not really for me," and think, "Okay, that's fine." And then there'll be a small percentage that say, "Yeah, we're really interested," but they just wouldn't actually turn up. So there was a bit of stress regarding that, where you're waiting to go live and no one turns up. So I used to end up almost like booking like 3 or 4 people that agree, in the hope that at least one or two of them would turn up. So it was a bit difficult then, and where you think, okay, I know it's also quite difficult getting people's time, particularly when I was going late, and that's why I tended to actually have quite a few Americans, just because the time frame worked. There's nothing like no other reason other than they said they were interested, and once I found 3 or 4 people that were interested, I wasn't really trying to get anybody else. I think, okay, this is like a nice little community, and I said this to them as well, that hopefully the channel grows. and if it grows, I'd love you guys to be on it the same, because we can, like, the channel can grow, and everyone's, they're not going to get upgraded or replaced, that sort of thing. It's not going to be, and I'm like, okay, I've got like more subscribers now. Let's get somebody famous to replace you guys. So it felt for me like we could grow as a team, but ultimately, I think what happens with this is that some people leave for different reasons, and I think actually a few people left because one of them, like, maybe he changed his job, I think, and the time frame didn't really work. And one of them wanted to set his own channel up, which is a common reason. Actually, a lot of guests have
Mhm.
actually set their own channels up and done their own thing. Not all football, but a few football, but a few other things. And I think it's just because it's been so long, like naturally people do different things, don't they? So they go, okay, one year they're into football podcasts, and then the next year they go, okay, I'd like to do something slightly different. But for me, because it was like my passion initially, I'm not going to stop supporting Manchester United or switch to a different sport. So it's always going to be that whatever whatever the channel goes, it was probably always going to be pretty similar for me. So that's why that's kind of like the challenges so far. I think the challenges, the current, are probably just keeping it on top of sort of developments in football and just making sure your channel's at least relevant to what's being sort of put out there, and try and, I don't know if you can continue to update things. I've kind of got an idea of things that work now, and I just kind of try not to be too repetitive, because if you look at sort of news, it can be quite samey. So I just want to try and avoid being boring, but without being controversial. If that so find some sort of middle ground.
That's pretty tough. You're like, okay, no clickbait, no controversy, but we're still gonna do everything that's happening. So it's like, it's definitely a daunting process, especially I feel like with our club. But
It's
I,
tricky though,
I
isn't it?
it's really
Honestly,
tricky, honestly.
if you want to make a thumbnail, I'm not great with graphics. I just keep saying I'm not great with graphics. So I'll just get a photo of a player, and I'll just
Pretty
pick some
good.
words to go with it. And people actually recently, they say, "Why are you saying this? Like, is it fact?" And just think, well, it's just it's like it's a talking point to start with, and then we can like go from there. But it's
Yeah.
tricky.
It's really tricky. It's a hook, but like, they're like, is that exactly happening? Where you're like, you have to come into the room to find out and watch the video with us. But this is like a less asked question, but I'm curious, like, do you ever get like nervous or like anxious about any topic you might be covering or what you want to and don't want to say on camera, especially because like your show's live? For me, it's made me way more confident to like be there and to just absolutely not care what people think about what I say. But you've done it for a really long time and you have people come on like your moderator also. So like how do you navigate that? Do you ever get nervous or anxious?
I think before I click live on most streams, I probably get a bit nervous, because it's the same as doing like a presentation in front of work, or a presentation in front of students when I was at university, and it's always like like a couple of minutes before you're about to do it, or like maybe maybe a bit longer when you're doing a presentation in front of people. There's always like nerves, like even um like I know this is a pre-record, but there's always like there's a different environment. But this morning as well, as soon as you click live, sometimes I'm sat there thinking, how am I going to start? What's the intro going to be? What will like, how will I present it? If someone just joins and checks out the video in 2 hours time, what will be the intro? And I just think, I don't know. I'll just click live, and the countdown is only 3 seconds. So I just think, okay, it's going to happen. Just have to do it now. But one thing as well is, because I'm trying to do news things, and what I usually do is have a visual aid. Where the idea is that if someone joins midway through, they kind of see the topic, and there'll be a few quotes from like news articles. So they go, that's kind of what the stream's about. And people will, as I'm setting up, people in the comments, I'll see some comments that go, why haven't you started? I'm just going, come on, guys, I've got don't increase the pressure.
Yeah, I've seen I've seen those comments. We're all just like waiting for like someone's mic to connect, and it's like oh three or like oh two, and they're like, "Why are you guys not on?" And we're like, "Can you give us like 2 more seconds?"
I know, I clicked something last night, and for some reason I was loading slides, and normally it takes about 30 seconds, 45 seconds to load. And it was about 2 or 3 minutes. Like, why isn't it loading? I'm going to have to cancel it and start again. And people going, why are you not live? The stream says it should be this time. Why is it not live?
Sometimes I don't know if they're like serious or they're just like messing with us, and it's so funny.
Yeah, I think the thing actually, I think they're serious. That's the I go, come on, guys. It'll happen when it happens.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that with me. I feel like it always happens in a lot of people's mind. Like that's something we all think about, but I feel like we don't talk about it quite enough. So thank you for sharing that. And as a follow-up, like football content is, I would say it's pretty passionate. Sometimes it gets heated around the end of the season. And it's also like you also have to manage like um different conversations that are happening, especially because since you do a lot of your content live, like you have people from all different football clubs and stuff like that, and then sometimes you're also dealing with a low point in your club's career, and that can take a big emotional toll. So for you, for example, you know, you're doing daily streams at this point, like really long content, hour-long content, on some of hour or more long content. So you're pretty immersed in it. How do you, like, for yourself, take care of your mental health and not that whatever negativity is happening, either just like whether it's like losing a game or like losing a few games, or maybe some bad reactions from like conflicts between fan communities and stuff. How do you like separate that from everything else that's going on in your life and take care of your mental health?
The thing with that one is that what's probably the worst point of Manchester United is probably what 7-0 to Liverpool. You do that, and I did say, we'll cover every game. We'll talk about every match, and when that happens, you think, wow, okay, this is pretty bad. And you're only about to click live, and you can see the comments where people are just putting things I won't say on, I won't say now, but things you're going, okay, I can't use those comments. I can't. You just think well, it becomes like so extreme where I think, to be honest, that if Manchester United lose badly, I'm disappointed really badly at the time, but I move on quick. That I move on quite quick. Like mentally, it doesn't affect me the rest of my life. My wife and children. Well, my wife has no interest in football, so I'm not going to go down and say, "Oh, Manchester United did this," and she'll be like, "Okay," she won't be really interested at all. But I think you just separate it from other things. That it's a game I enjoy watching. It's a club I support, and when Manchester United lose, I think you can be angry, you can be annoyed, you can be disappointed, but I think I move on quite quickly. So by the time it comes around to match reaction, I'm not really angry. I'm a bit disappointed with the way the club's going, but I don't get to that sort of point where, and I know some people reading the comments, I hope that they're not representative of how they actually feel because they seem really, really like beyond anger. And and I think we get the thing as well regarding sort of players and people get really personal and say things they think, okay, well, I'm sure the players are actually trying. I mean, I saw a lot of the players are not going out there to not try, and people get very emotional. I think they get very emotionally involved with that side of it, and it's difficult. I think for me, I've got other hobbies and interests, the things I like to do outside of football, which you can focus on those. But I think it's for me, it's as a content creator when you're doing those sort of streams, the thing I try and do is go like someone who will post something, it'll make people angry because they disagree. And I always say that I'm happy to have every single view as long as it's within the realms of acceptable language. Every sort of view talked about. So if you think a player's really bad, or you think he's really good, or you want to blame this or that, I think all views are acceptable. But I do have sometimes there is a bit of a problem with people attacking other people's views. So I always say that if you disagree with what I'm saying, you might think I'm talking absolute rubbish. Just let me know because, to be honest, I don't really mind. If you disagree with me, that's 100% okay. If someone, it's not going to change my opinion. And when you're saying about difficult subjects, there are some difficult subjects that people talk about regarding football, and probably the most difficult for Manchester United fan base is probably Marcus Greenwood and the thing that happened with him recently. And I think a lot of that people would say, okay, bring him back, and that would actually cause people in the comments to get really angry about that. And I think the best way of that is to try and diffuse it and say, look, he's not part of the club, and I think the club probably did the right decision, and we have to move on. And I think if people want to get very aggressive towards a certain player, again, go, I think you have to keep it with acceptable limits and just try and what's the word? I don't want to change people's opinions, but I think you've got to be respectful. Other people will not agree with what you're saying, so for some people in the comments, I can't comment say completely what they're thinking, but it feels like some people may have a problem if someone doesn't agree with them. So if you say something, you have to accept, and I say this to my children as well, that you might have opinions, someone else will have a different opinion, but there's no point trying to change their opinion. You know, if they're definitely set in their ways and they think this, you know, this is actually a fact, this is the way it is. You can't really know. Football is about opinions. It's not like if someone puts something in the comments saying a statement to go, it's a fact that this happened. And you go, well, it's not a fact, is it? Because it's an opinion. But it is difficult, and it is difficult when we finish 15th in the league and we don't win many games. People get extra angry. It's it's fun to actually talk about wins, and I think we need to celebrate those. But I think with if I don't want to say sometimes our match podcast, you've been on a few, Naomi. Sometimes it feels a bit like a therapy session. And at the end of the stream, people do actually say, okay, they feel better now. They kind of had their little rant and they can go, hopefully, they can go back on with their normal everyday life and feel a little bit happier. And hopefully, that it is a community as well. So I think when the channel grows, as it has been, that people are, they kind of meet familiar faces. So it feels like, after the match, go, okay, it's been disappointing. They'll say hello to people in the comments. So there is a bit of a community feel to it. But there is like again, like I said, it's a fine line, isn't there, between people getting really angry and if you can attack Manchester United, I suppose, to some extent, but don't attack the other people that got a different view, is what I try and push. It's not always easy though.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you for discussing that quite a bit because I feel like it's a big challenge to navigate like the fan space online because in my opinion, I genuinely don't think that what we see online from this like community in general, like the football online community, is an actual representation of how people are or how they feel or how they act in person. So I just feel like that when it's online, it's just everything is more amplified, exponentially amplified, and that's not always positive. Um, but yeah. Do you think
I think
do you
that's true actually. There's been a very few people that have been regular people in the comments and have actually come on as guests a couple of times, and they're quite different. I think in the comments sometimes people want to be noticed, so they have to go a bit further than they would normally. Whereas when they're actually on camera and people know that this is the person talking, and you ask them the same question, they will be like, okay, and they'll have they'll be a bit more rational. But I think if you want to type something into the comment section and think, will someone actually notice my comment? They tend to go a bit extreme, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I feel like that just for people it's important to like touch some grass, quote unquote, because you want to kind of remove yourself from that like circle because especially with like smaller communities, I feel like you're getting the same information in a feedback loop and every time you see the information it's like more and more amplified. So honestly, like I after our like podcast and stuff, like I'm like, all right, enough football for the day. Like I've spent 10 minutes on Instagram and X, that's good enough. Everything that's gonna come out the rest of the day is just like it's just an amplified or angrier or it might be happier too, but it's just like an amplified version of that. So I feel like it's important to like take a step aside from like the online world if that's the main way that you interact with the football community.
I think it is very different, isn't it? Like I used to spend, I suppose, we used to get a school bus, and then I talked to, this is like teenage years, and I just talked to fans of rival teams, and we just banter each other. But it's like kind of light-hearted, and I think, when I talk to older content creators, it might be a bit different actually, because we were maybe fans before YouTube and fans before this sort of social media community. We're more used to speaking face to face with rival fans and actually joking about it. And it is jokes, and your friends put different teams. Whereas I think maybe, like you said, if most of your interaction now is with people that you've never seen, maybe people are a bit less respectful because they don't know this person. Whereas if you're talking to your friends, you're going to see them every single day. Like you're going to see them on the school bus. You're not going to be insulting them with like going too far because they're your friends at the end of the day. So I think maybe if I don't know how I'd react if I was say as a teenager now, and football YouTube is your main kind of source of football information or football community. I don't know if it's for me. It's probably not the most healthy. I think it's probably nice to speak to people and have more sensible conversations. So I think football YouTube is not always now. I think my channel might be a bit more reasonable than other channels because there's a few people because of like the content. I think people know it's there for more of a rational discussion, and I think gradually it's kind of trended towards that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Like I have friends who are obviously like supporters of other football clubs in person, but I don't have any mutuals online, and that's because they say some of the most out of the box stuff about Man United. So honestly, I'm not friends with them, and if they're saying something weird and it's coming on my feed, I'm blocking them because I don't really want that negativity in my life. But in reality, like if you meet someone and you talk about soccer or football or any sport, and then when it comes to the clubs, you're like, yeah, I watch the Premier League too. Like, which club do you support? I support this club. I support this other club. Like, oh, that's great. Like, did you enjoy the last game? Da da da. The conversation goes on. If it's online, it's just someone who is like leaving a long text about why your club is like no good and stuff. So I just can't deal with that. But yeah, for our audience, I think that's a huge takeaway to like if you're interacting primarily with like online communities to take those conversations in person and kind of see how they evolve because that's the primary way humans are supposed to communicate anyway. But yeah, so Rich, your channel has been growing. It's I believe you hit 4K subscribers just recently. Congratulations. What has been the most rewarding part of building Right Devil United?
I think with probably the most, I don't know what's the most rewarding part. I think actually starting from scratch and like building it up now. So I think now we've gone past 6,000 recently. There's been like a
Wow.
big increase in like, and I think a lot of it is down to it's kind of got built momentum up recently with just obviously there's a lot of I think what we've done really is trying to be consistent. And I think one of the things is that everybody's got different views. And all I've said is that no, I'll always say what I think and politely, but I'll always say, I'm not going to state opinions that I don't believe in myself. And people will always like, I think eventually what I've seen is that people will come back because they think, okay, you know, it's actually quite a respectful community. A few people have recently put quite nice comments actually saying, oh, this is quite nice. Do you actually listen to the comments and you interact with people? And I thought, okay, that's quite a positive. And there's been like some quite good feedback live from people I don't even know. So for me, that's quite a positive thing, and that felt quite rewarding. So recently, over the last couple of months, things have actually increased quite a lot in terms of getting more subscribers and having different people in the comments. And some of the feedback has been really nice. So, like I said, there's always going to be a few people that just don't like the channel, and that's fine because the channel is what the channel is, and if you don't like it, then there's lots of other different types of channel. I'm not trying to recreate a different channel, like another channel. I'm just trying to do my own sort of thing. But people that do like that, they'll go, okay, this is like quite nice. I quite like the way the things are discussed on this channel, and they'll come back to it. So I think it's taken a bit of time because I guess there's a lot of Manchester United channels, so there's so many different channels to sort of look at and watch that it takes a long time for people to actually find your channel. But what is quite rewarding is that there are some people that watched like 4 or 5 years ago, and they maybe not as no they pop up in the comments and you go I don't know this I don't know the people, but there's a person that he supports Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany, and I think he might like Manchester United a bit, but he's been watching for 5 years. And he just popped up in recently because we're talking about Ekatike, and just he was just giving me a bit of info. And also since Ruben Amorim, there's been people that are Portuguese fans that have been like, saying, "Oh, this is what's been reported in Portugal," and added info to the community in the
Mm,
sort as we're going live. So for me, it's kind of like become like more fun, I suppose, in a way that if I do a live stream, I can research all the things I can read, and then some people in the comments recently they post quotes that they see and they post things that they've heard from like their part of the world. So we've got a lot of contacts kind of in Portugal, and they just go, "Oh, this is what's been reported by the Portuguese media." You go, "Oh, that's cool," and it adds into the conversation. So for me, that's probably the most rewarding. And also the fact that after 5 years, there's still a couple of guests that come on, so as they're fairly regularly, that I've known for 5 years, and we never met in real life, but we kind of built over this kind of friendship online because we both support Manchester United. We both like meet for once a week for a chat about the club, and for me that's going to keep continuing. So that is a positive.
That's absolutely incredible. And congratulations on hitting 6K subscribers, Rich. That's incredible. And I feel like it's
It
been
feels
a great
crazy
season
actually.
for
I,
you.
I, I I remember hitting like 100 and thinking, wow, and but you did, when you say about the same faces when you stream and there's just a couple of people watching, it's pretty much a conversation between you and a couple of people. Whereas when it gets to more people, it's actually quite good because you get different views and there's different viewpoints. Because remember we were talking about Rashford a year ago, which is probably a bit of a it is a bit controversial in Manchester United circles about Rashford, and there was definitely I was trying to be somewhere down the middle and just like see both sides of it, but there's definitely people that didn't like my viewpoint because I was too positive for some people and I was too negative for other people, so I couldn't really win. I just went, well, I'll just have to say what I think, but no, it's for me, it's like still a positive community because I think people have all different views, which is good because, like I said, you don't want to hear just one side of it, do you? You want to get
Mhm.
that sort of balanced view.
Definitely, definitely. And I just also want to bring up like something that you do that I feel like is incredible and like bringing communities together is um acknowledging like almost every single person's comment in the live stream, which is pretty difficult to do as
It's
someone
actually
who's
getting like hard. It's a good thing that it's getting difficult, but it's starting now where you
yeah,
think, oh, there's actually a lot of comments, and some people go,
yeah,
you can do so much, but no, I
yeah,
think it, I think what I tried to do, it's difficult because there's more comments. But when I have watched channels in the past, some channel like okay, quite a few ignore every comment, and you just think, oh, what's the point then? I'd think,
mhm,
well, I could just like talk to my friends, and but there's no acknowledgement of the audience, which for me was like something I wanted to do differently. And I think what I've done with my channel is um, just the things I like about other channels. You can like use some of the ideas maybe, but the things more often than not, it's the things I don't like about other channels. I don't want to be too negative, but when you think, oh, why are they doing anything this way? I'd rather do something different. And
yeah,
but no, some people have said recently, they said, oh, this is quite good. You actually read my comment out, and they're
yeah.
just genuinely surprised.
Yeah, I think that that's like such a special thing that I haven't seen around that much. And like even when people try like on different channels, the way I've seen it is like they'll do it like you mentioned for like a few comments, which I think is like the standard. But I really like the way you do it. I don't know. I think it's very special. So I just like wanted to bring that up really quick. Um yeah, and so like we have been speaking about, like you do several streams, several reactions, mostly daily, otherwise several times a week. So when you're not filming or reacting beforehand, do you have a ritual that you do? And then also, what activities do you do to like relax, or is this your way that you relax?
I think with this one, with like, usually I go for like a process of like setting up the stream and like just looking for information. I think it's quite easy if there's a match on because you know exactly what you're talking about. But because it's pre-season, then it's pretty much looking at the news and just thinking, okay, what should I talk about in the news? I don't want to be too negative and do the same sort of story over and over again. But when I was this morning, I did a stream, and so I'll give you an example today. I did a stream. I was looking for information, thinking, what is out there? What is out there? And you do a couple of searches. I've got like a few things bookmarked. I check the sources and go, okay, it's all about Umbremo and Manchester United. And putting in like another. I thought, okay, well, there's nothing else, and I'm going to be going out today at like midday. So I've got right. I'll do that, schedule that, and then when you do it, some people will be like, "Oh, we talking about Embuemo again?" You think, well, it's because it's the news, and you just think, well, there's only a certain amount of time you can spend, but then after that, I was out for so say yesterday, I was out a bit in the afternoon because my daughter had a sports day, and that was like a nice mental break from that sort of thing. And then, like you said, when you're doing other activities, it is really hot here at the moment, so there's only so much you can do outside. But one of my daughters it was a birthday recently, so we bought like a badminton net so we can put it in the garden, so we can do that as well. Got a football goal, so they're quite into sport, which is quite. And I've not tried to brainwash them at all. It's just naturally they're quite interested in sport. So, and one of my daughters wants to do like GCSE, so like in school, do when they get to select options to study, she wants to do physical education like PE. So there's a
Mhm.
few sports. Like today we went to gymnastics because they both do gymnastics. So it's quite nice doing that sort of thing where they're doing that kind of their hobby and we're kind of supporting them do that. And one of my daughters was saying, would you like teach me to play like about football or something? I was like, this is like perfect. This is exactly what I will do. This is like saying and I was saying, well, we can't do it at the moment because it's like 30 degrees outside and it's literally boiling. So we can't really run around too much. But I was saying now we got like other things like a netball net recently. My daughter was like practicing netball, and then I think she said they went to like a school fete yesterday, and she said she was like she's pretty good and like quite coordinated. And I said, well, you've been practicing at home, and she said she was like one of the better people. She said, oh, people are trying to like get me to join their team. And I said, it's for like I think it's like korfball, which I didn't know about. So I think it's like you got to have like hobbies and interests, haven't you, outside of it? And I think for me, it's about generally doing things. So if it's like sporty activities, and because my children are quite into that as well, it makes it easier because you can just get involved with them, and they find it fun as well. So for me, that's probably the outlet. Otherwise, music was the other one. Playing guitar is something I've done for like 30 years as well. It's something I did when I was in school. It's like, and again, that's just a completely different thing, just a way of relaxing. Although actually, as well, if you're trying to learn things, that can be quite stressful. So I try and like, you know, not do it 'cause it's kind of like a hobby rather than anything like too serious.
That's incredible. That sounds amazing. And I feel like it's a dream come true with like you're a huge soccer fan or like part of the soccer community and your kids are like, "Can you teach me soccer, Dad?" Like, yes. Like I've been dreaming of this day. That's amazing.
One thing I did recently is where I live, there's some non-league football teams. So I don't know if you're familiar with the British, like where you have the Premier League, and you have the Championship, you have League One, you have League Two, you have the Conference League, and then below that you have regional leagues. And where I
Mm,
live, it must be like I don't know, a couple of leagues below actually getting to the Conference League, and it's small. And what they did at the end of the season for the last game, it was they gave the schools in the area like it's like free tickets. So I think they got it free and they could take a parent. So I went with them and we're just watching a live game with children. It's it's like it's not anywhere near like the sort of thing you're looking at in the Premier League. It's 8 leagues below that or 7 leagues below that. But they're just like, oh, what's going on? And they're asking me questions, and it felt like it's like a dream podcast where you go, yeah, this is happening because they go, why is that player doing that? Why is this happening? And I just go, I was just talking like I was talking to like yourself or somebody else, and going, well, that person's doing this because they're trying to work the possession this way, and go, what about this striker? Why isn't he doing that? I go, oh, that's because he's just trying to just create some width there. Or and it was quite fun actually talking to them about it, and they were quite interested. And we went to another long non-league game when we visited family about I don't know a month earlier, so that was quite fun.
wow, that sounds so much fun. It's always so great to like be recognized, even in the smallest ways in your own community that you're passionate about. Like when you reached out to me and you're like, "Oh, can you do commentary on soccer and Man United?" I was like, "Oh, me, little old me." I was like, "Absolutely." So that's really exciting, Rich. I want to ask you if you can share with our audience about a time that football has helped you go over something difficult, get through something difficult in your life.
Yeah, it's difficult one to think about. I think for me, football's always been like something I enjoy doing, but I don't know. I've usually had quite a few hobbies on the go as well. So I think in terms of like relaxation, I think when you have like say stresses, it's probably more stressful when you're in school. I think with football also having like pets. I think so football pets and having like say music's an outlet. I think would be something that would help you because you kind of just I think with one thing when you're talking about say problems, if you're got thoughts in your head or like say if you're like feeling down, you can't really shut things out. in terms of like trying not to think about them. But what you can do is like distract yourself or just find things you're positive about. So I think in general, if you're feeling negative about something, you can't really shut out the negativity. But what you can do is like bring positives in. So you can look at it and go, like music for me, because it's like quite. Like I was trying to teach myself guitar, but also trying to teach myself like difficult songs. You kind of like have to be so involved in that that everything else becomes like completely forgotten about. And the same sort of thing as if when I had a dog or a cat when you're younger, if you go and see them, you kind of like instantly you think about, you don't think about something else. So I think for me, it's not I can't really actually think of like one specific thing, but I think generally over time it's just like for me now it's just different. I think football now is doing this. It's probably just like a break from just it's just different, isn't it? I suppose it's just for me it's become more of a social thing as well, that I socialize with friends that initially we started because we wanted to just talk about Manchester United, and now you kind of look forward to speaking to people because you're friends with them. But I think overall that if people find you're saying about using football as a kind of helping you out, if people are starting to find football is actually making them negative because of the way the club's playing, then possibly I would say it's always good to have multiple hobbies, because if you're if having football to help you through it, this year might be a struggle. So if you're feeling negative, and then luckily I've been feeling positive about other aspects of my life. So if I was feeling negative and then I watched Manchester United this year, I think it might have been a struggle. To be honest, actually, 1999, 2008, then they were quite happy years anyway because I was, I think, just like have very good circles of friends around that sort of time. So for me, it's just a positive that my team was actually beating my friend's team, so it's quite good.
Definitely. Also, I feel like if football is making you feel negative, just don't go on your phone after a game, right? Like if your team lost and you can't take it, like don't go on your phone after a game. Otherwise, you'll probably forget about it by lunchtime. It's not that deep most of the times.
No, it's actually,
Definitely.
I think for me, it's weird that people say, why am I so positive about the transfer window? And I just think because the transfer window, it's not the transfer window is not closed, and all the like we signed Cunha, I think it's a good signing, and Bremer would be a good signing, and people just go, but we haven't done this, we haven't done that, and I think it might just be an individual perspective. Like if I wanted to find negatives about Manchester United, there's about 1,000. I know I could just pick one, but if I want to find positives, there's positives as well. So maybe it's just on the individual, that maybe I'm more positive than I realize, that I just find more positive things, because I think if you talk about positive things, it makes you feel better anyway. And I'd
Mhm.
rather talk about Manchester United like building towards a positive future than focusing on the last couple of years where it's not been very good.
And if you're investing like that much energy and time into something, like whether that's to watch a game or if you're here to like wake up at 8 a.m. to watch a game, if it's like to go and watch a game, then like you should be guaranteed a good time in a sense that like you're watching it to entertain you. It's not necessarily because like it's football, you're not gonna win every game. So it's just like I enjoy the little things because I get asked this question like a lot, but like if my favorite player is playing, if he's getting subbed on, if they're like scoring or if they're assisting, like there's so many like little things you can be happy about. So yeah, that's my perspective on it. Yeah.
When I first went to watch United, then the first few times you see them, it's just like wow, you're excited about the stadium. You go, wow, look, there's Peter Schmeichel, and you go, there's like Andy Cole, and you just it's just really exciting. You think, you've seen them in real life, and I think
Yeah.
when I've seen other players, you just think, let's say someone like Ryan Giggs, like controlling a 60-yard pass without breaking, you just think, wow, they're actually so technically amazing. And you look at someone like Patrice Evra and think, wow, he's really technically amazing, and he's a left back, and you just think you're surprised by how good they are in real life. And I think it's
Hmm.
like little things like that that you don't really think about when you're going to see the game. But one thing I would say is this is an interesting question I got asked. Is one of my friends was really into music, didn't like football at all, and he was saying that how can you go and watch a game where you might pay a lot of money and your team doesn't win, and he was comparing it to going to gigs where if you go to, if you go and watch a band you like playing, they're not going to fail to play, or they're not going to play really badly. So you're going to, yeah, you're always going to get a good performance. And I was saying, well, I think with this one, it's probably if you go and watch. No, I've been to gigs as well, and I like music a lot. It's like my other passion, and I've really enjoyed watching bands play live. And you think, it's a great experience. And I think with football, it's different because like the highs are higher and the lows are lower. So for me, it's more extreme. So if you go and watch a band, it's fantastic to watch them play, and they play songs that you like. You like watching the musicians. But football, it's like you don't know what's going to happen, do you? So for him, he was saying, "What if they lose?" And go, "Well, sometimes they lose, but then when they
Yeah,
win, sometimes it's like, say, the Champions League final in
magical.
1999. How do you you don't have that in music, do you? Where you think your band's going to suddenly forget how to play all the songs and they win it at the last minute. So it's just
It's a tough feeling to encapsulate, but like I don't think it's comparable. All right. So what do you hope people walk away with after watching Red Devil United, beyond just football takes?
I think with this one, hopefully hopefully people actually find it as an environment where if you've got an opinion about Manchester United, like positive, negative, or you got views on a game, I think hopefully the idea is that it's a community where you can come in, you can say your views, people respect them, you'll get a community that welcomes you in and is happy to just discuss football. And it's not going to be a community where if you come in and I disagree with your view, I'm going to block you in the comments. And I'm just like, I think some people just think they're surprised that all like I think it's got to be like a community type feel that there if people join, say if a new guest comes on, people in the comments will be like, "Oh, welcome to this person," just happy to see them. And I think it's just got to be that sort of environment where primarily it's like a football community, isn't it? And I think as a football community, people aren't going to agree on things, and that should be fine. But at the end of the day, people should then move on, and then next day we do a podcast. Everyone can then start again and put different discuss whatever we're talking about. So hopefully it's something that's inviting and people feel like they feel, no. I want people to actually watch it and get involved in the discussion, and get involved in the debate. Sometimes I put like polls there for people to vote on, and then think, okay, this is actually quite fun. Maybe I'll come back next week or next or tomorrow or the day after, and not find it. I don't know. I don't want to say negative thing about other channels, but hopefully they find it as something they enjoy participating in, because that's the idea. The idea is that the live streams, people can get involved, people can actually put their opinions out there and see what other fans are thinking.
Beautifully put. Yeah, definitely. Um, and what do you wish clubs, players, the Premier League, the larger fan community, but also Football Federation understood about mental health? And how do you wish to see that space evolve in the next decade?
That's quite tricky, isn't it? I think of a lot of things. It's there's obviously like a lot of pressure in elite sports, and probably I think a lot of fans feel a bit like the clubs take them for granted and that they're viewed as customers. So there's a lot of negativity, I think, towards owners in particular. And I think a lot of it might be more recent because I think in the past, with there being more money in football, then expectations are higher, transfer fees are higher, player salaries are higher, and everybody just thinks like, okay, this player should be doing this because they get paid this much, and the player doesn't set their salary, and effectively, a player could be getting paid much less. There's still the same sort of pressure. If you got an anxiety issue, this can be the same. So I think probably more awareness would be a good thing, and I think it depends on like ethically as well. I think there's one thing I found, this is maybe a bit off topic, but I think in terms of like the Premier League seems to be pushing loads of like gambling sponsorships. And I'm not against gambling, but I don't really gamble. And I think sometimes that is definitely not to the benefit of fans. Like if I did have a gambling problem, then this would be the worst time to be alive, where you can just open an app on your phone and I can't watch just football like anything on TV without about five betting adverts. So I think there's probably maybe a drive towards money more than anything, which I think fans don't like. That there's clearly and we know there's more money in the sport than there ever has been, And I think making it so blatantly obvious where they're pretty much advertising, trying to take your money every single advert and not hiking up prices, I think is definitely making people feel a bit like they're being priced out. And I think that can create a negative environment. So I don't know how in terms of like the mental health issue regarding football, it's kind of difficult, isn't it? I think there's probably progress, but it's slow. So I think if you look back to someone like Stan Collymore in the 90s, when he said he was depressed, the initial reaction was like people just laughing at him and saying, like, how are you depressed? You get paid this much money. Whereas I think now, if you think of like, say, Jadon Sancho as an example, he wasn't having a great time a couple of years ago, and he did actually go. I think Manchester United gave him a sabbatical. So I think there is definitely, I think there's more awareness, but I think it's still one of those things, isn't it? It's probably quite difficult, isn't it, for sportsmen? Because I suppose if you go for that, it's a bit of a different environment. If you spend the ages of like 7 or 8 joining an academy up to the age of like 17, 18, where you're pretty much in an environment where you've got to get into the top 0.1%, there's a lot of pressure for years and years. And then when you get to the top, as soon as that happens and you start playing professional football, maybe some players think that okay, that's it, they've made it because they have, in a way, they have made it. They've had, had a career, but for the fans, that's when it starts, and people want to see that there's pressure from a fan base then, where they go, right, what's this player doing at 18? He should be doing this at 20, this at 21. What's wrong with this guy? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they need to talk about it more. Maybe that's the sort of thing because it's always seen as the weakness, isn't it? That if someone's got this
Mhm.
issue, I mean, no one talks about. If someone's got a broken leg, they go, okay, they can't play. But if someone's got some mental health issues, I think it's more difficult to explain. So maybe it's awareness is the problem, that because people don't understand it, or it's not quite so easy to define, and it's sometimes
Mhm.
more unique to different people. It's probably like harder for people to talk about, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I'm also glad you bring up like the lifestyle aspect of it, like just because someone's like living comfortably or getting paid like X amount, that doesn't mean that they're not susceptible to like any mental health struggles. So I feel like that's a really big thing in like the football community, and we're happy to support it when it's like not a big inconvenience to us. But as soon as it becomes like, yeah, well, they can't play because, they're going through something, then it's like, oh my God, they're so spoiled. How can they do that?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I think if it's like a strain, they go just take a painkilling injection. If it's like a mental health issue, they just go just play football. Like you get, like I think one thing. I don't know if you know the player David Bentley. He used to play for England. He used to play for Blackburn. He was he was like supposed to be the next David Beckham in terms of like career trajectory, and he was really he was a good player. He ended up playing for Spurs, I think, after Blackburn. And then at the age of, I can't remember the exact age, but 25, 26. So I think he just retired. And he said, I'm retiring. Or it might have been 27, but he retired. I did play for England as well. And people were like, oh, why are you retiring? You're like, you could play for years. And he just said, I'm not enjoying the pressure. Um, for me, I said I've already made like more money than I ever need, and I think he might have bought a couple of bars or something and started um, creating some businesses, and just said that I've got enough money to set myself up with a business and just do just go for like something which I don't like the pressure, and I can't really handle the pressure, and just decided to do that. And I think for some reason there's a lot of people that said, "Oh, why is he doing that?" No, he could have like millions of people would love to be in that position. I just thought, no, fair play to him. Like he's got all the money he needs. He doesn't need to prove anything to anybody else. He made it as a professional football player, played years at the top, and has prioritized his mental health and maybe what's better for him and his family. So it's much better than carrying on doing something he doesn't like, because if you haven't got your heart in it, it's not going to go as well. So for me, I think he made the right decision.
yeah, that's great. And I also like that you bring up that enough is enough mindset, which is not a common thing that I've noticed in a lot of spaces that I've been in. But I used to always be like an advocate for people to, recognize when enough is enough, like on anything that they're doing. Um, So that's really great that you bring that up, and I'm gonna have to look into him. So as we start to wrap up here, what advice would you give to folks who are passionate about creating content around sports, but haven't started yet or are on their early journey? What would be a piece of advice you would give them?
I think with probably the best advice is if you just started out, maybe chat to other people that are doing something similar, they're in a similar situation, what sort of issues they've found and they've overcome. Because that's one thing I did myself was um, when I spoke to Kieran, I just asked him questions, just basic questions like what software do you use, or just things like that. And it might be different for every sport, or it might be if you're talking about different sports, maybe it's about okay, what sort of topics are popular, or what sort of things, or just I think just getting advice from other people that potentially are a little bit further on than you. So if you're just starting, maybe find somebody that's creating content that's been doing it for a few months, or but find people that you look at their content and think, okay, I quite like the style, or like the just someone that you think would be like a good person to bounce ideas off. Because I think a lot of people are quite approachable, and I remember actually recently there's a I think Manchester United fans probably will know the Webby O'Neill YouTube channel, and Webby came on as a guest probably a few weeks ago, and there's someone I know that said, "Oh, can I try and find guests?" Because normally I don't really have special guests, but he just messaged him and asked him, and I think he checked out the channel and said, "Okay, I quite like what you guys are doing," and he came on for like a 45-minute podcast, and we just asked him questions about Manchester United. So I think people are approachable, and I think maybe people think that why would they? Maybe people think they wouldn't reply, but I think a lot of people in this sort of space some won't, but if you try a few, somebody will, and I think people are more approachable than you realize.
Definitely. Beautifully put, Rich. I'll also second that because I have gotten support like that from some incredible individuals. I just happened to ask them in person because I met them in person, but that's a really beautiful piece of advice, and I feel like all of us could take a bit of that. All right, Rich. So tell me what's next for Red Devil United? What's coming up next season? Where can people find you?
Yeah, people can find me by just going to YouTube, type Red Devil United. Hopefully, it comes up. It's some pretty blatant Manchester United branding with like the symbol of Red Devil, and I think I've got a picture of the stadium in red with like a logo in the middle. But what we're going to be doing is generally last season we tried to cover every match, whether it's like a preview or definitely a match reaction because there's always something to talk about, and there might be a watch along with people. Sometimes it's just some graphics and it's like a chat room where people can get to talk about the game during the match, and then we feed into the post match like live discussion where we usually do that after every match because I think people that's the best time. So as soon as the match finishes, we just go live quite quickly, and then we go right. Let's talk about the game, and we have a discussion about the game. But recently, it's been a lot of transfer stuff. What we're going to try and do as well is I need to. My graphics aren't the strong point, but I need to create a thumbnail so I can do like a. I want to do a show where I just drop the link in the comments and people can come on and have a chat. Because there's been a few people recently that say, "Oh, I'd love to come on," and I
Mm,
don't just want to get. I don't want to use the word random, but just people I don't know just to come on because sometimes it's I've got a set plan and I've got regular guests and we've got a good rapport, and I might do something different where I don't know, maybe once a week or once every so often just give fans the chance to come on and just have their say because I think that seems to be a popular idea among other fans. So that'll be something where I have done it a little bit in the past and it's been a bit hit and miss, shall we say? But I think now we've got a slightly bigger community. I think it might work quite well, and we'll get some people to come on, and it might be something that we can do every once in a while, just because people watch channels, they get involved in the comments, and like I said, sometimes the comments are different to what they would say on screen. It'd be nice to actually get them to put their point of view across and like give them 5 minutes, 10 minutes to actually have a chat and get to be on the screen, have a conversation with people they normally just watch talking to them. So that for me would be maybe the next step.
amazing, Rich. Thank you so much for being here today and for accepting my invite to be on this channel. our audience. I hope you enjoyed this episode. All the links to Rich's channel are gonna be linked down below in the description. But yeah, thanks so much, Rich.
No, it's a pleasure. I was happy to be asked. When you said, Naomi, have we got time? I was like, I'm going to find time because it's nice to be invited on, like you said. Because I think some people, you ask them a thing like, would you like to come on? And a lot of people actually say, I'm really happy to be asked. And I think, well, you're helping me out as well. So it was a pleasure to come on, Naomi, and nice to speak to you for, again, in a positive environment. And hopefully next time we speak about Manchester United, we'll be talking about great things happening.
Great things happening this season. We're gonna start on a high and hopefully end on a high. But as far as our job goes, it's just starting it on a high note. So yeah, thanks so much, Rich.